Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I hope Lionsgate, since August 8th, has been awakening and as kind as possible. Maybe some really insightful downloads for some folks. And now we are in a new moon coming up on the 18th and 19th of this month, of August. The new moon is in Leo, and it will be on August 18th here in the United States, August 19th if you're in UK or in Asia. So this new moon is in Leo, and our sun is in Leo as well, and Mercury is also in Leo. So Leo, 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 pretty kitty, pretty kitty, pretty kitty, all around. And there's some interesting numerology that goes along with this. So the sun and the moon are at 26 degrees and they're conjunct, and 2 plus 6 equals 8. So that's a number of power and leadership and cycles. And Mercury is in Leo at 28 degrees. 2 plus 8 equals 10. And if we reduce that down to a number 1, this is about new beginnings. It is related to the Magician card in the tarot, so gathering resources and having new insights on how we can use what it is that we already have at hand for our best and highest good, maybe even a little bit more efficiency around that. So with all of this Leo energy, Mercury is in the mix. So a lot of, we're going to probably be experiencing a lot of things like around communication, our intellect, new insights, new thoughts, new perspectives. And because Leo is very much about self-expression and about personal power and how we understand and express that personal power. And it's also about fun. Like if any of you have known a Leo or have had a Leo in your life, and or somebody who has a lot of Leo energy, and you probably would experience that person as being pretty fun loving. And so there is this element that's really beautiful about this new moon that puts the priority, a healthy priority, back with the self, connecting with the self, connecting with what it is that we really want to bring forth. What is it that we want to share with the world? Um, so it is about being seen, and that might be the rub for some folks. Like for some of us who are not so comfortable being seen, who prefer to work more in the background, or who prefer more of a supporting role, if there is something that life is inviting us to like really step up to the plate and own and embrace and allow ourselves to shine, that can be a challenge. But rest assured that if that is the case, and your heart is being invited to that, to allow yourself to be seen and to let yourself shine, this would be the new moon to create that momentum. Saying that, this new moon is about the long view. This is not a new moon where many of us are going to experience any kind of instant gratification. In fact, this is a new moon that is potent for long-term seeds of change. And this really, and that might seem like, oh, well, I'd rather like instant gratification. I know. We live in an instant society where like we can have, so many different luxuries and so many sensations like at the drop of a hat. And yet there's certain things in life that are worth like going the distance for. And this new moon is about fostering those things that are our heart's desires, that are worth going the distance for. And part of the maybe the challenge in that is defining for ourselves what exactly those things are. Chances are we've gone through a lot of upheaval this year. I mean, I don't think you need to be an astrologer or follow astrology to be able to say that. But the amount of upheaval that we have experienced, especially over the last 6 months, a lot of us probably already have an idea of what it is that we want. And many of us, if even if we aren't clear on what we want, we probably really know what we don't want. So that is this new moon is about making those long-term plans, and it may be very helpful to separate it in increments. We're going to talk about Saturn. So like Saturn is got a part to play in all of this as well. And Saturn is 26 degrees in Capricorn in its quincunx with this new moon. And sorry, I almost sneezed. So Saturn is about limitation, it's about time, and to a certain extent it is about restriction. But time can also be used as a condensation kind of energy as well. It doesn't always have to be like the limiting force that makes it difficult to get things done. Sometimes having a timeline and sometimes having that limitation gives us a container so that we can condense energy. So that's a new perspective that I would like to offer, is that with this Saturn, Saturn is still a little bit of a challenging influence because it is still in retrograde, and so there's still a little bit of that. It's still difficult, and at the same time, we've been working with it all year long essentially. It might be beneficial to maybe create a little bit of a different relationship with Saturn. What if with this new moon, especially with its like this fertile soil that we have right now to plant our seeds of intention, what if that Saturn energy, instead of it being a limiting force, what if we can work with it in order to just create a container? So that might mean, if we're going to take that path, that perspective, that might mean that we ourselves may need to get comfortable with incremental results versus like, going for the gusto and like getting everything done all at once. Because I'm feeling like a lot of folks who are going to be watching this, I'm feeling like there's like big shifts, that there's some folks out there who's been watching this who are going to make some big shifts. And when we're making big changes in our life, sometimes it can be a lot more sustainable to take one piece at a time. So that is something that would be a really good activity with this particular new moon, and tapping into the way Saturn is aligning with this new moon, is to use that power of limitation to literally break it down into milestones. What is it that we need? What are our resources? As the magician, as the co-creator of our universe, what is it that we need to gather? What is it that we need to clear out? Are there ways that I'm using my resources in that are not as efficient or productive? Like, for example, do I need to use my money in a different way? Does it need to be invested in a different way? Is what I'm investing currently not getting the results that I need? How, if I'm an entrepreneur, how am I relating to my business? Do I need to relate to my business and or my clients in a different way? What is it that I'm really wanting to say in the world? And this new moon is inviting us to get really clear on what it is that we want to create. And it definitely says that if we follow that, and we follow it in a way that accepts incremental results to the long view, that we will be successful. The piece here that can be a little bit difficult with that is that Mars is in Aries. It's at 24 degrees, and Mars energy can be twofold as well. Mars can give us a lot of energy. It can give us that tenacity for that long view. And at the same time, it can also ignite impatience, and we might be frustrated with the fact that things may not be happening quite as quickly as we would like to see them. My thought is that in comparison to a lot of the other astrology that we've had earlier on this year, which was, some of it was pretty gnarly. Like, we had that Venus retrograde that I know for me, like, kicked me on my butt. But with some of the more harsh kind of astrological influences we've had this year, that it might actually be a blessing in disguise that we have this lunar alignment that's coming up that isn't necessarily saying that everything's going to shift and everything's going to get better really quickly all at once, because this new moon is about creating long-term transformation and change, and it's about planting seeds that have deep roots, that are not going to plant something that might have shallow roots, even if it grows really quickly, that may end up fizzling out in the long run. So a little bit of patience, a lot of self-awareness, actually, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of forgiveness and patience with ourselves first and foremost will go a long, long way. Also, in regards to Mars and Aries, something that's coming to my mind automatically is the importance of taking care of our physical body right now. Mars and Aries can create a lot of energy, and we just may feel like we just need to do something. And so, you know, it creates this burst of energy physically, mentally, and otherwise. And so be careful that we don't burn ourselves out. Another thing that we might find in this new moon is that with Mars and Aries, that perhaps we have been already going too fast, too quick, and in a lot of ways, mentally and otherwise. Just because we've been in quarantine and a lot of folks have been in lockdown doesn't necessarily mean that we've been quiet. So if the mind is constantly buzzing, and especially if the mind is churning fear-based kind of information that is constantly seeming to be bombarding us all the time right now, that can burn out our nervous system and overwhelm us in and of itself. So being very conscientious about how we direct our energy is something that that Mercury is really bringing up to our awareness. Is energy follows thought. So how is it that we're directing our intellectual energy? How we direct our mind and what it is that we're thinking about is what we're devoting our energy to. So if I'm constantly thinking about what the media is having me watch and wanting me to think about, if I'm churning through, you know, any kind of the negative toxic stuff that's on social media, and I'm thinking about that all the time, guess where my energy is going? It's going to the very thing and feeding the very energy that I probably don't even really want to be part of anyway. So this new moon, because of its strong Leo energy, and Leo being so much about like the sovereign self, is an excellent moon to empower ourselves to bring it back home. And with Mars and Aries, Aries is also about like the sovereign self. So this is an excellent new moon. If we feel that our energy and our attention is being pulled out in ways and in places that are just not very helpful, this is an excellent new moon to bring your energy back and to own it. And then to use Mercury's influence to direct the mind in a very specific way so that we can not wait for the new normal, but create the new normal, the long view. So with this also with this new moon, with it being in Leo, something I wrote down that I wanted to share was that joy is becoming a priority now. That what is it that gives you joy? And whatever it is that gives you joy, and I don't mean distraction, I mean joy, there's a difference there. How I differentiate the two is if it's an activity that afterwards I'm like, oh, that like filled my heart, like I feel good after that, that would be joy. But if it's an activity where it's like, oh, that was fun, meh, you know, it's not necessarily a bad activity, but it's just plain entertainment or maybe even distraction. But joy, that which fills your cup up, is the priority. And the thing that is really important with Leo that can really help us like bring more of that in is to embrace the concept emotionally and mentally that we deserve that which gives us joy. Even if it means that what gives us joy is going to require us to make big sacrifices, to perhaps step into the unknown, to give up things, to change relationships, that is, if that is what is that's really calling us, and we know that it's going to increase joy, chances are it's probably a decision that is in our best and highest good. And if we resist it, that may also be an indication that indeed it is for our best and highest good. Otherwise, it wouldn't sit there and gnaw at us, even though we're like, no, 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 it's going to be too hard. It's going to be too hard. I don't want to deal with that. Like, I'd rather be mildly uncomfortable than to step out into the unknown. Then chances are that's exactly what we need to do. So don't take resistance as our intuition telling us that something is not the right path. Many times the right path is exactly where our ego is afraid to tread. So if it scares you and it brings you joy, I would say that that is a formula that most likely is saying, ding, 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 you're on the right path, just keep on going. So a big piece of this I wrote down was that there is, with Mars squaring Saturn, there is a friction between what we know and what we know from our past. What I mean by that, there's a friction between what we know is in our best and highest good, what our intuition, what our inner knowing, our inner wisdom is telling us. And there is a lot of energy with Mars squaring Saturn that there might be the itty bitty shitty committee back here that's telling us why we can't. That's telling us why it's too hard. That's telling us that, we're stepping into the unknown and that's too scary. That, whatever the me kind of rhetoric is back there, whatever it might be, that this is a new moon, that if we can go the distance, meaning we can overcome the ego trying to keep us in what we safely know, because sometimes the devil that you know is the one that is more comfortable than the unknown, right? So the ego is totally okay with being uncomfortable in what it is that we know, because what our primal self wants to do is just keep us safe. So it's just like wanting to keep us alive. And it's like, yeah, we may not be happy here, but somehow this feels safer than going out and into the unknown. This new moon is all about calling us out into the unknown. And that any of that resistance, that me, itty bitty shitty committee, any of that, that is just simply the challenge and the lesson that needs to be integrated on the way to achieving that. So this is really like a hero's journey kind of new moon, very much. It's going to be very important in order to be able to go the distance and to be able to deal with any kind of the resistance to making those transformations, the resistance to making those changes, the fear, whatever it might be, that we find ways to emotionally regulate. So with Mars being in Aries, there's very much a tendency where that we might feel like a lot of energy, but we may not have an outlet for it quite yet. Because depending on what it is that we're creating, we may be in a planning stage. It may not even be in a stage where we need to physically be doing much. For some of us, it may even be like right now we feel a lot of like fidgety energy, but maybe physically right now we're not even able to have an outlet for that. So some things, anything that you can do to move energy right now and to let go, especially of emotions that are based in anxiety or worry or even fear and grief, anything that we can do to move that kind of like heavy energy would be really excellent right now. So you know, pick your medicine. It could be anything from ecstatic dancing, just like dancing around in your living room, just to move the body and just, you know, let it freely just move in whatever way it needs to move. If you've never done ecstatic dancing, like just in your own home, not really, like it's okay if it looks awkward and it's weird, you're by yourself. If you've never done that, I would highly recommend it. It's very, very cathartic, and is something that can really help to give expression to emotions that we may not even know are there or even stored in our body. Some other ways that we can move energy: breathing techniques. So ocean breath. If you don't know ocean breath, I have a video on my YouTube channel that explains how to do that. Lion's breath. I also have another YouTube video on that as well. Um, Sound healing. If you do singing bowls, or going to a sound healing event, chanting, um, creating art, what else? Swimming, or taking a bath, or you know, taking a ritualized kind of shower, doing ritual. You could do a ritual underneath the new moon, like all of these. Meditating, like, please, yes, yes, like if you're not meditating right now in this like crazy time, I highly recommend even something as even something like like a mindful meditation while you're taking a walk, where you're completely immersed into your five physical senses. So there's a lot of different ways to move energy. And right now would be a really good idea to do that, because that will help us give expression to energy and to emotions and thoughts and feelings that could get really stuck. And when they get stuck, then it's really hard to move forward. Another way to move energy in relation to our goals and our aspirations and what we want to create in our life is to take the time to sit down and journal, write, create a bullet list, bullet notes that will highlight what it is that you really want and what it is that you would need and or need to get rid of in order to make that a reality, and break it into some steps. Like, it doesn't have to be so planned out where it becomes like goal oriented. I still want to keep it intention oriented, but something that can be really helpful though is that just breaking in these big aspirations that can feel really overwhelming into bite-sized chunks. So if you want to start a bakery, then maybe one of the things that you'll need to attract is investors or some sort of influx of money in order to have the seed money for that. Perhaps you need to improve your recipe for sourdough. I mean, whatever it might be. And then what are some of the things that you can do to align with all of those different pieces that you might need in order to attain the vision? So yeah, so breaking things up into smaller mile markers, smaller intentions, or that will then build the momentum, because this is really about building big momentum, and it's Leo. So, you know, Leo energy is big energy, and it's made to be seen. And so, yeah, put yourself out there, allow yourself to be as brilliant as you're meant to be, because living small, it doesn't help anybody. And oftentimes when we allow ourselves to shine, we give others the permission and the inspiration to do the same as well. So on that note, I invite us all to shine as brilliant and as beautiful as we're meant and as we were designed to shine. And in doing so, maybe one by one, we can all make the world just a little bit of a brighter, more beautiful place. So happy manifesting, guys. This is a powerful new moon. Don't let the muck, don't let any of the heavy stuff that might come up to the surface, don't let it dissuade you. You've got this. And any of that resistance, if you didn't have the resources to face whatever is in your way, whatever the challenges might be, you wouldn't be given it. So also on that note too, reach out for a resource if you need to reach out for a resource. This is a big deal. we're coming into some energy that's really potent to shift and to change some things. So if you need to lock arms with others, if you need to have a sounding board, then reach out to your fellow supportive beings, you know, whether or not that they're spiritual in nature or physical in nature. It's important that we ask for help. And with it being Leo and it being so, and Mars and Aries and us being so self-focused, we may forget that we actually have, you know, a lot more support than perhaps we give ourselves credit for. So let's use it. All right, thank you all so very much. And I hope that you have, these next couple weeks are going to be magical and full of manifestation. I am going to be giving intuitive guidance sessions at the end of the month, August 29th. So if you're needing some clarity, you can take advantage of my event rates on that day, which are $40 for a half an hour, $80 for an hour. These are in-person readings at Everything Just Rocks. The information's below. Also, if you're wanting to supercharge your intentions or create like a protection amulet or whatever your energetic and spiritual needs may be, I will be teaching a rune class at the end of the month, August 30th, from 4 to 8 p.m. I'll be explaining what the runes are of the Elder Futhark and how to combine them to create specific energetic effects. And we'll be creating our own selenite amulets for our specific intentions. So that's going to be a really fun and exciting class. I'm super excited for it. So if either of those speak to you, make sure that you click the link below. And I look forward to seeing you back here in a couple of weeks for our next full moon lunar report. Thanks. Bye-bye.